Okay, Connie, you can go ahead and let everybody in.
Oh man, we got a special guest on the call.
Yeah, we got a bunch of cartoon people.
I have never seen him before on any of our calls. I'm gonna give a nod to him. I'm gonna call him out actually.
Well, I want to welcome everybody to our first of several webinars for this year's First Nations Launch competition. Welcome to the First Nations Launch 2023 Rocket Workshop webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christine Bowles, the Director for the First Nations Launch Program. And I want to introduce today's guest host, Mark Abotossaway, who is, as you can see, with his lovely design in the back, with Blue Origin, a structures engineer, an alumni of the First Nations Launch Program, and part of our admin team helping to make this program the great program that it is. So Mark, I want to thank you for your willingness to lead this discussion. And he, just so everybody knows, to kind of talk about this a little bit, he is the individual who helps make sure that each one of our teams has mentors and just has all of the tools that they need to be the most successful that they can be locally. So with that, without further ado, Mark, go ahead. I'll let you take it away.
Well, I'm not on mute. How about that? Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So we'll go to the next slide. So this webinar is mainly for the new teams who are looking to get into First Nations Launch. It's kind of one of the very first resources that you're going to look for, other than having an advisor, which you should already have, having submitted your NOIs. So that's the intent of the webinar, is to just provide a little bit of experience and knowledge about what a Rocketry mentor is and how to get a Rocketry mentor if you are new to Rocketry and you don't know the Rocketeers in your area. So we'll do this by sharing some of the experience from our students, and our current advisors and our current mentors. We have a number of them on the call willing to share some of their experience next. So like Christine said, I'm an alumni. I competed in the second, I think, annual First Nations Launch. I am the advisor liaison, so advisor support primarily. And this is, we found that the new advisors especially struggled a little bit with Rocketry and needed someone to kind of point them along the way for the first year. And so I think maybe our current advisors could speak to that too in a little bit when we get to that.
Mark,
So
I'm just going to interrupt. You really do look young there.
Oh, that one? Yeah, there's me on the side there. I'm a few pounds lighter than I am today. I'm the guy in the black jacket. That was our rocket at First Nation Launch. It was called Spirit Dancer. It was a nice fiberglass rocket. We won first place that year, University of Minnesota. So I was the team lead for the University of Minnesota for a number of years. I also competed at the NASA Student Launch Initiative, and I've mentored at the Spaceport America Cup. And I've been with FNL as a project assistant since 2016. Next. We'll introduce, I'll let them introduce themselves, our kind of guest speakers today. Thank you all for coming out and supporting First Nations Launch. I'll throw it over to Andrea.
Hi, my name's Andrea. I'm a former FNL competitor for UC Davis for a couple of years now, and now I'm volunteering as a mentor here locally for high school and college.
There we go. Next.
Do I pick somebody else?
No, you're good, Andrea. Scott.
All right. Greetings. I'm Scott Pinkham. I'm the FNL advisor for our ACES UW team, University of Washington, and this will be our third year competing. And I guess I'll be here to answer questions, but I do need to leave at 2:30. So.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Steven.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Stephen Singletary. I'm at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Second year advising the Rocket team here. Actually, we're more of a Rocket club now. I think Pembroke's been there four or five times, but this is our first time in consecutive years. So lots of lessons learned being applied this year.
Thanks, Stephen. Where's Mike? There he
Yes,
is.
hi. Trying to figure out how to unmute myself. There we go. So yes, I'm Mike Harrell. I am both a mentor and a co-advisor for Rocketry at the University of Washington. This is, again, our third year of competing with this. And I did have a fair amount of Rocketry experience in my own Department of Earth and Space Sciences before becoming involved with First Nations Launch, where we did it on our own without reaching out to the local Rocketry community and learned the hard way that, yeah, you really do want a mentor when you're getting started in things like this.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And finally, we have Gary.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Stroik. You can read the slides, but I've been a mentor for numerous teams, obviously for FNL, but also USLI and Spaceport America Cup. And I've been doing this for a number of years, and well, at least 12 years, mentoring teams. So I would support what was just said, in that the teams really need to reach out and use their mentors in order to make sure that they not only meet the requirements of the competition, but also that they are able to construct and build a safe rocket that's going to fly successfully. It's at least that's what I've experienced over the years with all the various teams I've worked with. And so, so anyway, looking forward to today's meeting.
Thanks for being here, Gary. And an interesting note, Gary Stroik was my mentor when I was a student. And I have similar experience to Mike and others. We kind of struggled for the first couple months. We didn't know anything about Rocketry. We didn't know what Tripoli or NAR was. We didn't know there was a club in Minnesota. And then when we finally discovered Gary and the club, our lives got a whole lot easier and a whole lot more successful. So we'll go next. I'd like to also note there's one other mentor on the call, Tim Young. We've never met before, but we've had some email exchanges. I know you are supporting the North Dakota teams. If you want to just give a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm a professor here at the University of North Dakota in the physics department. And I've been doing rocketry since, well, a long time, but with the university since 2000, so about 22 years. And we've entered the NASA student launch pretty much every year. And we have our own project called Stripe, which is a 12-inch rocket that is projected to go up to about 24,000 feet. North Dakota is pretty widespread, so we have a lot of teams across near Newtown, which is about 5 hours away. So we try to manage all of the teams here. But thank you. And I do have to go. I've got a meeting right after. Probably I talk right now.
All right.
But I'll watch the recording.
All right. Thanks for your support, Tim.
Sure.
So what is a Rocketry mentor for those who are new to Rocketry? First Nations Launch defines a Rocketry mentor as someone on your team who is an active member of either Tripoli or NAR. So those are the national organizations that control the Rocketry associations or clubs and that the events that occur around the country. Your Rocketry mentor should also be experienced to the level of the competition rocket or higher. So this is usually certified level 2 or certified level 3. So your mentor can't be at just a level 1 rocketeer. Your Rocketry mentor is a member of the local Rocketry club. So this is preferable. Your mentor doesn't have to be on the board of the Rocketry club. Could just be an experienced member, level 2, level 3 flyer who's flown for a number of years. But having access to the local launch site and being able to facilitate a local launch for your First Nations launch team is kind of an advantage, a good a skill to have for your rocketry mentor. And basically, a rocketry mentor can assist or should assist your team with the rocketry design, the rocketry procurement, and the build of your rocket. And then also know your rocketry mentor may or may not have an engineering degree, and your rocketry mentor may or may not be associated with the school. So among our various existing mentors, some are faculty at the school and some are not. So it's kind of all just depends on your area. Next. Responsibilities of a mentor. So a mentor usually coming in, you kind of wants to know. Yeah.
We're having a little bit of a hard time with your
Audio
phone.
again.
Yep, audio. So can you just make sure that you keep facing the audio as you go along here, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So responsibilities of a mentor. Your mentor is a volunteer who is tasked with assisting students with rocket design, simulation, and kit selection, and assisting students with part procurement, especially if you're new to rocketry. The team's not going to know where they can procure rocket components. Assisting students with the rocket build and component testing. Again, if students are new to rocketry, they may not know the best techniques and tools and how to build a successful rocket or how to test components. And your rocketry mentor may be required to facilitate a local launch. Especially during the COVID years, the last number of years, there was one year where all the launches took place locally. And that was when we started requiring teams to have a local rocketry mentor. Yeah, next. And then some benefits of having a mentor. So the panel will get into this a little bit better and their different experiences. But we'll contrast some of the experiences with and without an experienced rocketry mentor. So are you editing on the fly? I just saw something pop up. Sorry. Simulations, right? So rocketry mentor can help with simulations, design, rocket design, rocket procurement, rocket build, rocket test, and rocket flight. Do any of the panelists here have any particular stories to share with any of these benefits? And maybe Andrea might, when you started out, how did your mentors kind of benefit you in each of these areas, or any one in particular?
Yeah, so most of the mentors I had, they helped in all these areas that you've outlined. For example, and yourself too, they went over how to start off, basically what is simulation software, and overview on how to use it, and then more one-on-one time on making sure your simulation is correct. Design, that's a big support from the mentors, because not only do we have to design according to the competition goal, but also to the NAR or Tripoli standard rules to make sure everything's done safely and up to code for that. Procurement and lead time. So I think that's one of the biggest things that mentors have to offer. Since most of them have been in this hobby for a long time, they might have more personal connections to different types of vendors, or knowledge on where to get certain parts, motors, even launch sites. They're more familiar with that than somebody who's new and entering the field. They also, at least one of my mentors, William, he was very heavy on testing. These skills come and go depending on the types of mentors you have. At least his biggest thing was testing just about anything and everything on our rocket, whether it was a small battery or even a shock cord. He was very big on testing just about any component. And he always knew to connect to us to who to fly, or a certain launch site, or an RSO that's local, a ranging safety officer as well.
And what about flight, Andrea? Did your mentors, I know you guys launched locally, right? So just getting access to those fields, can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, so what I meant by that was not only not only did they teach us like, well, where are these launch fields, where are we allowed to launch, they also helped us with the launch hardware. So what I mean by that is they had access to like different size launch rails, setups, control boxes, the actual equipment to perform launch and all these test flights, and as well as be able to sign off on it by them and their colleagues, because it is a requirement that not only do you need like a mentor to fly these rockets, depending on the type of motor you use according to, Tripoli and NAR rules, but also an RSO to facilitate all that. So there is a lot of moving parts to even launching just one rocket. I couldn't imagine, when we all meet up in Wisconsin and launch a bunch. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrea. I want to comment, one of the benefits of having a mentor. So again, when I was a student and Gary Stroik was our mentor, one of the big things for us was those test flights. So we would drive out in January in Minnesota, and we'd have to 4x4 across a snowy field, and we'd break out the shovels and we'd shovel our way across the field, and we'd set up the launch pad, all trying not to freeze to death. And Gary was there helping us with that. He was such a great mentor and a volunteer for our Minnesota team. And then the downside to that, I remember the downside to that test launch was the rocket was white. We didn't bother to paint it at all. It was a small model, scale model, and it went ballistic. So no parachutes came out, and then it landed in the white snow. And I don't think we ever recovered that rocket. So neither here nor there. Next slide. So how to acquire a mentor? So if you're new, you may be wondering, well, how do I find a mentor? How do I find a rocketry mentor, such as Gary or Mike? The teams must acquire their own rocketry mentor, usually based on location is your or preference. There's a number of mentors. You can have more than one mentor. You need at least one. The team lead and the advisor should be seeking a mentor. It's kind of their responsibility. And it's my task with the FNL team to assist the teams with finding their mentors. So I know for this year we have some new teams, especially with the new teams. I find the returning teams usually have built up a great relationship with their mentor already. So this is more focused towards the newer teams who do not yet have a local mentor. So the first course to find a mentor or acquire a mentor, see if your school has an existing rocket team. A lot of schools do have a rocket team who compete in other competitions. And someone from that team could be already your mentor. You just need to ask them and reach out to them and say, hey, we're entering a different competition or a smaller competition. Would anyone from the current team be willing to mentor us in our competition? And if not, if their hands are full or they may be able to help you find another local mentor or the local rocketry club, Tripoli or NAR club. Next. And then also how to acquire a mentor. You could look online at the Rocketry Club websites. So Tripoli prefectures are listed at that website. If you go to tripoli.org and look at the prefectures drop down. And then the NAR chapters, again, are nar.org. And there's a find a chapter or find a club website. And click the drop downs and you can find a local club near you. And then once you have a local club, you can email the club board. And this is based on my experience. So this is how we got in touch with.
Your audio is going out again.
Let me switch audio.
How's that? Better?
Yes, Mark, much better.
All right. So and this is again based on my experience. So you could email the club board. So when we met Gary back when I was a student, we basically just found the Tripoli, Minnesota website online. And then we emailed them and they invited us to a meeting. So we went in person to their club meeting. And that was when we met Gary, and the rest is history. And now years later, Gary's mentoring champion teams at Spaceport America Cup. So, and I'm working at Blue Origin.
You could attend a monthly meeting or launch. So a lot of the club meetings are open. You don't really have to be a member. A lot of the boards encourage and support new members attending. So just reach out to your local club. And most of the clubs are aware of the various rocketry competitions. If you're closer to Wisconsin area, most of the clubs will know of the First Nations launch. So just a map, just a picture showing the Tripoli Rocketry Associations across the US. There's a number, you see the blue dots kind of, it indicates the number of clubs in that area. So you can see in the Chicago area, especially, rocketry is pretty popular. There's 11 Tripoli clubs in the Chicago area. So hopefully there's a club near you. Sometimes they may be across, unfortunately, they may be across the other side of the state. But your mentor could also be a virtual mentor, someone who just calls into your meetings and to make sure that helps you with your simulations and designs and things like that. So it's better than no mentor. Next. And then the next map here is National Association of Rocketry, the NAR Club. NAR has a lot more chapters, I think, than Tripoli, but NAR is limited. Usually they don't go above, I think, level 2 flights. So a lot of their flying fields and flights are capped by a few thousand feet, which may or may not work depending which competition, which year we're in. Next. All right, some tips on acquiring a mentor. Avoid common pitfalls. Ensure your rocketry mentor is properly certified. So you will give us the mentor's name, and we can verify that the mentor is actively paid up to date in their membership, which is the next slide. So the mentor should have a card, as the picture shows. That's a Tripoli membership card. It'll have their information on their name and then their certification level, to which we can verify. Do not wait to find your rocketry mentor. The sooner the better, especially when we're getting into proposal phase coming up in the next couple of weeks. It helps if you understand RockSim and how to make a simulation profile and pull data out of RockSim, and your mentor is great to help with that. And also reviewing your proposal. So the technical aspects of your proposal, your rocketry mentor can help with that. And then, like I said, teams can have more than one rocketry mentor, which divides up the work and provides redundancy. So I know a number of our teams have 2 or 3 mentors as well, which is totally acceptable. And then we'll throw to the panel and share some of their rocketry experience. So there's some talking points here, the ones that are applicable. So maybe just share who your mentor is, what club, what launch site you fly at, or the sites you've been to. If you're a student, how you acquired your mentor, if you could share that. Or if you are a mentor and advisor, share how you became a mentor, how you met the teams, and how you got involved. And then feel free to share any pitfalls or mistakes to avoid. So we'll start with our student member, Andrea, again.
Oh, you know what, Mark? If I may interrupt, I think Scott needed to leave at 4:30, so it might be good to get him to chime in before he has to leave.
Good idea. We can start with Scott.
All right. Thank you. For us at the University of Washington, as I mentioned, we're in our 3rd year. So the first year that we were actually with FNL was during the COVID time. So everything was online via Zoom. And we actually got connected with the First Nations launch. I think Mark had mentioned it to me prior years, but then staff member here at the University of Washington, Professor Robert Wingley, who works for the Washington State Space Grants Consortium, got us involved and said he had helped mentor us, and that helped us get going. And then over the winter break, unfortunately, Professor Wingley passed away. So we lost our mentor, and our group was kind of stuck. What do we do now? How we need to find a mentor. And so fortunately, the University of Washington did have a rocket team already and did have the space. And we ran across Mike Harrell, who works at the University of Washington. And he graciously stepped in, and with his knowledge, it definitely helped us out, that he knew space where we can build a rocket, because that was a big thing that we needed when we joined this club. Okay, where are we going to build it? What resources do we need? And Mike was very crucial in finding that space. So I appreciate his input. And what we learned actually, I think over these years since we were there, was that the mentor and advisor roles do kind of are blended for us. That Mike took on also some advisor roles and things that he was doing. So this past year, he became a co-advisor for us to really recognize, how much effort he was putting in with us. And I just want to, tell Mike, thank you for what he's done. And for the University of Washington, we've launched at sites. They're probably about an hour and a half. Is the closest one to us. Given that we're right here in the major city of Seattle, we can't necessarily launch rockets when you have a huge international airport so close by. So we did find some spaces, and Mark and Aaron have joined us at some of those sites in the past. And we probably won't go back to Goldendale because that's in the gorge and it was very windy. So that's one thing I think we're checking with mentors if they know sites that could be beneficial where it's not too much risk that you get out there and they have to cancel the launches. So that's briefly what I have to share, but if people need more information, please feel free to reach out. But as I said, I do need to go. It is 2:30 Pacific time, but thank you for including me.
Thanks, Scott. All right, we'll follow up with Andrea.
Yeah, I think one of the best, and I mean, honestly, the easiest way to start is to really refer back to the two websites you shared that give the directory through both Tripoli and NAR. And then look, approximately who is your closest chapters or members and email them directly. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just, state, hey, we're representing this school for this competition. We're looking for a mentor. And honestly, even without COVID, our mentors really helped us more with ours virtually. You can zoom them in to show your report. They can help proofread your report. You can show them parts. You guys can meet together over Zoom to look at websites to order different parts for whatever you need for kits, or to even go through the handbook together if you have any questions that with a lot of technicalities they can honestly help you with. So letting them know that being remote is definitely an option might probably get you better answers than, if you're emailing somebody who might live 2 hours away. They might think that they're expected to drive back and forth weekly, or whoever knows how often, back and forth to your campus. So keeping an open mind to having it be remote or virtual is a good way to start. And then as you get through the building phase, invite them over to your campus or to your workshop, wherever you're building with, so they can help you more with the process there as well. And it doesn't have to be, as often as you would meet them on a remote basis. And yeah, they can definitely help you with more than anything, just the knowledge of the industry and practice of it. I mean, most people who are currently in NAR and Tripoli do have quite a few years of experience that they acquire. They kind of know what works, what doesn't work, and they have pretty good area expertise on what kind of materials to use. And once again, they can help you connect to different vendors or launch sites and launching material, like the hardware, like the launch rails and the controllers and all that kind of stuff as well. My mentor is currently William Walby and Becky Green. They also mentor the UC Davies NASA USLI team. And then everything I learned from them, I'm now mentoring high school teams or community college teams as well. So I myself am now becoming a mentor as well, that I'm no longer competing in USLI or FNL. So now I'm just mentoring as well. Oh yeah, and one thing to mention, actually what I've learned is most mentors or people who are in NAR and Tripoli, at least around here in California, everybody's kind of part of both chapters. Like I'm licensed level 2 for both Tripoli and NAR, and my mentors are level 3 in both Tripoli and NAR. So I've learned that actually most chapters co-host launches, at least here in California, and also are part of both organizations most of the time.
Awesome, thanks, Andrea. We'll go to our remaining advisor, Stephen.
Unmute here. So it sounds like we did something similar to everyone else when we were looking for a mentor. We basically went to the Tripoli website, saw what prefecture we ran. I emailed the prefect and he said, hey, I wouldn't mind being your advisor. So that's how we got hooked up with our mentor. I'd say the two biggest things that he has helped with, one was plugging us into the local rocketry community. So we now have contacts with a lot of other, we call them regulars in the club. They're out every time there's a meeting going on or a launch weekend going on. They're out sitting in their chairs or working on something or commenting on something, and they're always happy to talk with us. And the second thing was with procurement. Last year, we didn't have anyone who was level 2 certified, so we had trouble getting motors to test. And he was able to help us out with purchasing motors that we needed for test flights and helping myself and a couple of other members get to level 2 certification. So um, yeah, just reach out, send out an email, and you never know what you're gonna get when you do that. So it's been fun. We've met a lot of different people pretty much from across the state when they show up there for launch weekends.
I can just
Steve.
interject on this, on what you guys have shared. It's really exciting to me to see, Stephen, Andrea, that you guys went from level 1 at the Launch to Learn to level 2. And I think that's pretty exciting. I just learned that. I guess I didn't realize it for some reason. So pretty exciting for me, and really happy that you guys have gotten that level 2. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to follow that on too. Stephen, can you talk about like how your team has grown a little bit, and you know, you guys are looking like the next step or the next thing, and how your mentors are helping with that?
I think so being a second year team, the biggest thing that I'm seeing now with the students is that the veterans from last year, they saw how the competition went. And being from a smaller school, I think one of the things they weren't used to was engaging in extracurricular activities. So most of our students are commuters. Their typical day was they would come to school, they would take classes, maybe stick around between classes, and when they were done, they'd go home. But then they were involved in this extracurricular activity and they weren't quite sure how to process it. Then they went to the competition and saw the level of effort that other teams were putting in, and it flipped the switch. I don't know what happened, but this year they're meeting right now across the hall and it's 5:30 local time. For this year's competition, they've already started building testing materials. They've got a test flight scheduled for November. And this is stuff that last year I had no idea would have ever happened this year. I am beyond impressed with how they've sort of flipped that internal switch. And so I'm seeing benefits, not just with the Rocket team, but I'm seeing it in them across all of their classes as well. They're applying that same level of initiative to their classes. They're getting ahead in their classes so that they can spend time on the Rocket. Basically my team captain this year, he's running all the meetings, he's setting the schedules. It's making my job a lot easier because I don't have to, use the stick or the carrot approach this year. They're almost self-sufficient. I'm just along for the ride this time, which is completely different from last year. So that's sort of the big change that I've seen. In terms of with the mentor, is they now interact directly with the mentor. It's like, well, what am I doing here now? So they have no problem reaching out to our mentor or other people in the local club if they have a question. Sometimes they'll broadcast a question to several different people and they'll take whatever information they get first and then keep on moving with whatever tasks they're on. So it's been an amazing transformation to watch.
All right, thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. And then we'll go to Mike Harrell next.
Well, Scott already covered quite a bit about our own experience here at the University of Washington and how we ended up keeping a fair amount of it in-house. But a couple of points. As I mentioned earlier, I went through a similar process with our departmental rocketry group. The late Robert Wingley taught a course in high power rocketry for several years, and I was involved in that in various ways. And for the first several launches, it was a disaster. to the point where the local club took us aside and said we either had to get our act together or they would stop inviting us back. And in hindsight, a lot of that was because we were going it alone, and it didn't occur to us that the local club members would have been happy to step in and help us before we showed up at the launch site with things that we should not have shown up at the launch site and attempted to fly. So please, by all means, reach out and get a mentor, and don't learn things the hard way like we did, because it ended up taking us far more time and effort than it should have. So we learned that lesson the hard way. Please don't learn it the hard way. The other thing is our local chapter, our local rocket group, the Washington Aerospace Club, is both NAR and Tripoli affiliated, fairly common, as Andrea mentioned. And even if we hadn't kept things internally with our mentorship, I know a lot of the people in the club, and they would have been delighted to get involved with rocketry, with student groups in general. They're happy to get new people involved, so don't hesitate to reach out. They'd be overjoyed to hear from you.
All right, thanks, Mike. And then we'll turn it over to Gary. Gary's got a number of experiences he can talk to. I know that. So I'll let you pick. I might coach you along the way a little bit here, Gary.
Oh, sure. Yeah, feel free to do so. So Mark, as he had mentioned earlier, had reached out to the local club and came to the meetings and met me. And I think, like many people in the hobby, are thrilled to help people starting out. I've been in the hobby for 25 years. So it was for me, and you know, I'll just say this. You know, I'm very proud of Mark. You know, where he's working for space company right now, Blue Origin, and many of the students since Mark got this club started and have moved on to work for various space companies. You know, SpaceX, NASA, ULA, a number of them. Largely because of this company, this work with the rocket competitions and so on. And so that's something your students, you know, can potentially look forward to if they invest the time in these extracurricular activities. Because at the University of Minnesota, although there's an aerospace department, they really don't have any focus on space activities. You know, directly. So in any case, I think, you know, personally, yeah, I had what I considered a very good career, and I wanted to share those experiences, and I have with the team not only technological experiences but also management experience and how to structure the teams, and I think you know, today, you know, the team that I think, Mark, what was it, 4 people we started with?
Yeah, just the 4 of us.
Yeah, just the 4 of us. Yes. Yeah. So today, generally, there's over, you know, 70 or 80 people on the team. This last Sunday, for example, we certified over 50 new members on the team, level 1. So we have a very, you know, the team has grown over the last 12 years by leaps and bounds. So it's just become a very team that's very focused on rocket activities. And so in terms of acquiring the mentors, you really just need to ask, and you're going to find someone who's willing, you know, in a local club, or it could be a remote club. So not only do I work with the University of and I live in Minneapolis, or a local suburb, but so not only work with University of Minnesota team, but I mentor the Iowa State team. I've mentored other high schools in Iowa, other colleges in Minnesota. I've mentored Boston University as another example. I've mentored teams from Egypt and Turkey and other countries as well for Spaceport America Cup. So mentors can do this remotely. It is a little bit more difficult, but it certainly can be done. And so those are it's certainly feasible. You know, pitfalls or mistakes to avoid is don't you get a mentor and then you just don't talk to them. So you really want to use them and leverage them. And so that's the main thing I find is that you know, in some teams I have to really kind of push to get interaction with them, and yeah, that shows when it comes to the competition. You know, when you get to the competitions, but over time we work through that with those teams and get through those situations and make sure that they are doing very well, and that's a a benefit, I think, to the teams, the members on the teams, and how they move forward in not only their school careers but their careers later in life. So where do you want me to go, Mark? I've just kind of really a 10,000-foot overview here, but
Gary,
Right,
I have a follow-up question for you.
Sure.
Because I know there will be teams that may think this or may wonder about this. Let's say there's one Tripoli, prefecture, one NAR chapter in a specific area, but there's 3 different campuses in the area that need a mentor. Tell us about what it's like for the mentor when you have, for you have a University of Minnesota, but I also know that, Leech Lake Tribal College and Fond du Lac Community College will also be reaching out to you. So you'll be mentoring several teams all at once. Can you
yes.
just kind of walk students or advisors through that as a mentor, what that looks like?
Certainly. So it's really going to be up to the mentor to manage the time and manage their schedules. So for instance, one year I had mentored 5 teams attending the USLI competition in Huntsville. That was probably a little too much. That was a little bit of a challenge, but so I really just worked out times and days with the specific teams. I generally co-organize a competition up here, and I'm generally mentoring, not only organizing the competition, but also usually mentoring a couple of teams for that competition as well. Although I try not to, I try to find other mentors, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I do that, but yeah, I just try to work with the teams and try to make sure that they put out the best product they can. I'm not trying to bias or be favored towards any specific team. In fact, as I said, the competition I co-organized, I don't even think the Minnesota teams ever won that one, but other teams I have mentored have. So it's I think you really need to work and focus on what does that specific team need at that point in time, and whether it's technical advice, whether it's organizational advice in terms of structuring, how the team's going to operate, in terms of subgroups, or is it focused on the technical writing side of it, or whatever it might be. You really need to focus on getting those teams to address those issues and then build on those, throughout the school year, but then subsequent years as well, and try to maintain basically a database or record of what you've learned, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then build on that year over year in order for the teams to continue to grow and flourish over time. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Not everybody is willing to put work with as many teams as I am. So I'll just be honest, but certainly you'll be able to get people to work with 1 or 2 teams. I'm sure one at least, and probably at least a couple. Does that help at all? Or
Yep. I was just
okay.
for teams wondering, like, can they do it, or is there anything special that I need to do if I had if my mentor has several teams? I think you did a great job. I'll let Mark continue on. I didn't mean to.
Oh,
Right.
all right. All right.
I think Gary's being a little bashful. I think Gary was great as a mentor. A couple of other things that he didn't fail to mention is Gary's a distributor himself of parts. So there are countless times where where we needed a component, and we'd call up Gary right away, and we'd go by his house and pick up something that we needed to test, or we broke something during a test. So Gary was always there to provide us the procurement support, for parts and things like that, electronics. Another thing that Gary also provided as a mentor when I was a student, he has a little machine shop in his garage. So there was times where we couldn't get access to the machine shop, whether the school was closed on a holiday, and we'd go over to Gary's and we'd use his mill or whatever it was we had to use to finish up a part that we needed for that weekend or for testing or something like that. So Gary was great mentor. Thanks for coming out and sharing your experience with us. I think for the sake of time, I think that's it from our panel. We can turn it over to questions. I know we have a couple on the call, Colleen and Philip.
Any questions? And I think both, for those that selected Frank as their mentor on their notice of intent to compete, which would have been done by the advisor, that's one of the things that we'll work with you to secure, hopefully secure a local mentor that's not Frank. He's there to help all the teams, but not be the main mentor for your team. So Colleen, I think one of the, we have a couple former alumni from our collegiate rocket program that are in the state that will be able to potentially assist you, and we'll work to help get you coordinated. And Philip, the same thing. I think Mark has some folks down in Oklahoma area that he can suggest, but really do recommend, as he said, take the first step. That's the best part, when we see you guys being proactive to make that connection with a mentor. You're going to be more likely to continue to reach out to that mentor. And was it like Stephen said, not counting on somebody else to be the mediator? You guys are going to just be able to have that conversation and go directly to the source. And like they said, I'm watching this whole panel, and Frank hasn't been mentioned, but Frank does also mentor teams all throughout the state of Wisconsin as well, and he does multiple teams. He does that for our statewide competition. He does it for the Great Midwest Rocket program that he will go and judge, and we help support teams that go to that. So I got to tell you, it's there's certain hobbies, and rocketry is one of it. I find it in boating, I find it in airplanes as well, that the community is, and ham radios, that the community is very tight knit. And once you show that little bit of interest, folks are very willing to assist you and help you be successful. And they are a right-hand man or woman to the advisors. As Stephen said, it's kind of amazing what's happened over the last year with the connection with a good mentor, and then seeing the students just begin to flourish on their own. And that's exciting. And that's part of what having a good mentor is going to do. Philip was able to, and I'm just going to, Northern Oklahoma was able to go start a new team at Oklahoma University just because they had great mentors last year, and that excitement, and they're going to be ready for a successful year, two students transferring over. So those are some of the benefits that I see from somebody who's run the program since 2014. And I think, adding the mentor component was probably one of the best decisions we made as a competition. It really does add a level of support for our student teams that we didn't necessarily see that was there before that. So I do want to, Mark, I know you'll do it as well, but I do want to thank Mark for leading this workshop or this webinar. I want to thank all of our panelists and for quickly responding to Mark as he asked for you to come and be a part of this. You guys are great, and I think it does, it's a huge testament to the impact that he has made and the relationships he's made within the rocketry community. So and again, both to the alumni, to the faculty, and to the advisors and mentors who have been a part of his journey in aerospace and rocketry. So do you want to thank everybody? if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be putting this up on the website and make it available. Next week, we will be having our kickoff meeting for the First Nations launch competition. And so we invite you all back. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. there will be a webinar from now until almost time of competition. So we invite you all back, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks to the speakers.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Gary.
Yes, thank you.